The Dallas Stars find themselves as one of the recent victims of the NHL COVID outbreak. On today's show, we'll talk about the players that are in COVID protocol, talk about some of the guys that we may see replace them for some stretches of this season. And then to close out the show, we'll talk about some of the Dallas Stars prospects that are currently playing in the World Junior Championships. All of this coming up on a Monday edition of Locked on Stars.
You're Locked on Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked on Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, and it is Monday, December 27th. I hope every one of you had a fantastic Christmas. Those of you that celebrate Christmas, hope you had a great holiday, great weekend with your family, whatever you celebrate. Hope that you enjoyed your time and had a great weekend. I hope you had some rest. And we're back here. We're back to it with another week of Locked on Stars and hopefully another week of some NHL action. Tonight's games, as well as some Tuesday and Wednesday games, have been postponed. But as of the time of recording this, around 11 o'clock on Sunday night, the Dallas Stars are still scheduled to play the Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday, as well as on Friday, a home-and-home series right there between the two divisional rivals. But before we get into all of the good stuff we want to cover today, some of it's good, not all of it's good, but some of it is. But before we jump into everything that we need to cover on today's episode, I do want to take a moment and say thank you for stopping by today's episode of Locked on Stars. Whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, thank you for making Locked on Stars your first listen of the day. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked on Stars podcast wherever you get your podcast at, whether that is on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. But without any further hesitation, let's jump right into the storylines for today's episode of Locked on Stars. The first of those and the biggest of those being COVID-19 updates for this team. It was announced on Sunday that Erotic Fox, Joel Kiviranta, Michael Raffle, Mira Hayskin, and Jason Robertson, as well as two support staff members of the team, have been placed into the NHL's COVID-19 protocol. All of these guys joining Jani Hakanpää, defenseman for the Dallas Stars, who it was announced a few days ago at the end of last week that he was in the first Dallas Star to be placed in the COVID-19 protocol. It felt like only a matter of time. The days of the non-COVID illness stomach bug seem to be long gone for this Dallas Stars team. It's unfortunate, but like I said, it was only a matter of time. And as of right now, Dallas still doesn't have it quite as bad as some other teams in the league. Teams like Calgary, who haven't played since December 11th, I believe, was their last game. Dallas definitely not the only team facing the adversity of this COVID-19 outbreak with game cancellations and whatnot. But this is still very, very concerning because these are some of the most valuable guys to this team outside of Joel Kiviranta, who before his upper body injury, before even this COVID fiasco, was not necessarily playing well, not really doing too much. But you look at a lot of these other guys on the team, and their impact is definitely going to be hard to replace during this stretch that we won't be seeing them on the ice at all. Erotic Fox has won 57% of his faceoffs, and he has a very quiet 2 goals and 8 assists. Definitely not the stat leader in any part of the stat sheet. Although he is third on the team in faceoff percentage. That's why I mentioned that he's a very valuable guy to have in the faceoff circle at even strength, but also on the penalty kill. Erotic Fox has always been kind of an underrated guy on this Stars team. Definitely will be missing his presence. And even the 8 assists, a guy that is involved in a lot of the big plays that the Stars have had, especially over this recent stretch where they've had a little bit more success. And so definitely going to be missing a guy like Erotic. Michael Raffle leads the team in faceoff percentage at 63%. I think it was 62.5, but, I rounded up to give Michael Raffle, the benefit of the doubt. They're one of my favorite guys on this team. Another quiet 3 goals and 5 assists. And I've talked about this guy at length on this podcast. Not just a guy that's going to fill the stat sheet, not really his role on whatever team he's on, but a guy that's going to make the right plays, make the smart play, and often make the guys playing on the ice with him better. So another guy that not too many guys on this team do what Michael Raffle does. I'm curious to see who's going to try to fill that role. Maybe Luke Glendening, another guy that plays a similar role as Raffle, and who, plays center and plays in the faceoff circle a little bit and has had a pretty good season there. But as far as just his setups, as far as passes and his outbreak passes and defensive disruptments, going to be difficult to replace what Michael Raffle does on a nightly basis while he is absent from the team. Mira Hayskin, one of the biggest names on this list of guys that will not be playing for the next several games. Clearly one of the best players on this team. Another guy we've talked about at length on this show. He is fourth on the team with 18 points, 4 goals, 14 assists. But similar to Michael Raffle, not all of what Miro does for this team is counted in goals and assists. The ability to disrupt plays will be missed dearly from Mira Hayskin, and the way that he uses his stick on the defensive end of the ice is probably the best on this entire Dallas Stars team, and maybe top 5 in the entire NHL. And I know Saad Youssef and other people that I've had on this show have praised Miro for just his ability to get back and stop what could be one-on-one plays for the opposition against one of our goalies. And a lot of potential goals have been shut down because of Mira Hayskinen's ability to shut down those kind of plays with his speed, the ability to use his stick, and just the way that he positions himself on the ice. Mira Heiskanen is a guy that the Dallas Stars will miss dearly. We even got a little bit of taste of that whenever he was dealing with the non-COVID illness, but now he has been placed in the COVID protocol, so we won't be seeing him for the next several games. And the last guy, Jason Robertson, second on the team in points with 25, 10 goals, 15 assists. And my biggest fear with missing a guy like Robo is what it will do to the top line, especially with Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, his line mates. How will they fare without Jason? We look at the start of the season whenever the Stars offense was struggling. I think part of that was Jason Robertson missing the first several games. If you remember, we didn't see Jason Robertson for quite some time. I can't remember how many games exactly. I know for sure he didn't play in the first 4 games on that road trip in New York, Boston, Ottawa, and Pittsburgh. But still, Rupe Hintz struggled to start the season. I think a big part of that was not having a guy like Jason out there on the ice. Even Joe Pavelski took him a little bit of time to get things going. Both of those guys found their form when Jason came back, and then Jason, of course, was producing, playing alongside those two guys. So one, you missed the offensive production that Jason provides in and of himself. Second on the team in points, a very capable scorer. Also a guy that when he's not scoring is setting up his teammates for goals. And of course, now Rupe and Joe are missing that guy who is either that they're setting up or that they are scoring off of his setups. And so I'm nervous, optimistic / nervous all at the same time because I know Rupe and Pavs are very, very capable guys in their own right. They don't need Jason Robertson to be good. But this Dallas Stars top line has pretty much carried this team offensively throughout this season, and especially through the high points of this season. And so now to be without Jason Robertson for an extended period of time is very frightening for the Stars team, and missing some other guys on the team too. So I don't know how the depth chart is going to quite shape out and who is going to be playing along Rupe Hintz and Joe Pavelski, if they'll even be playing together. They may spread those two guys out in order to, make the most of what they have roster wise. I would hate to see that, but I think that that's a possibility. Again, don't necessarily think it will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think that the coaching staff is going to have to get creative of how they create their lineups for these next few games. And especially if we're going to have some guys from the AHL come up and play for extended periods of time, things are going to get very, very interesting. And this team is going to be tested over the next few weeks because they still have some tough games ahead, including 2 this week, fingers crossed, if they're still happening, against the Colorado Avalanche, who are going to be looking for revenge because last time these two teams met up, the Dallas Stars got the best of the Avalanche, and it was in a pretty dominating fashion. Well, coming up next, we will take a moment and talk about some guys playing at the AHL level that we may see get some playtime during this kind of COVID outbreak for the team with the guys that we just talked about missing. But before we talk about that, I do want to take a moment and say thank you to one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Stars, and that is Built Bar. It's the end of the holiday season, so grab a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar is filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. So you get the best of both worlds. Healthy and delicious. So many flavors, you'll have a hard time choosing. Will you have raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie. So many delicious options to choose from. It's going to be hard to narrow down what you want. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel that you'll need to bust down those mall doors and battle those holiday shoppers. So maybe you're standing in endless shopping lines, or maybe you're returning some gifts, exchanging some gifts from Christmas, from the holiday season. Well, Built Bar can give you that extra something that you need to keep going. So throw one in your jacket or your purse as you go back to the stores to make your exchanges, or maybe pick up some other extra last second Christmas gifts. You can go to built.com right now and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, you can get 15% off your order by using the promo code LOCKED15 at built.com. Moving on to the next segment of today's episode of Locked On Stars, your first listen of the day. Want to take a moment and talk about some guys that we could be seeing on the Dallas Stars taxi squad, or maybe just guys that we'll be seeing from the AHL coming up to play at the NHL level over the next few weeks, as the Dallas Stars are starting to have some issues with COVID finally hitting their roster. And something we didn't really touch on last segment, this could potentially just be the beginning of what could be guys missing time because of COVID. There was a big spike across the NHL yesterday because guys were reporting back to their facilities for the week. Yesterday around 2:00 was the time that the NHL said that teams could start reporting back to their facilities for practices and preparation, because in theory they were going to have games today. But now, as we know, all of the NHL's games today have been canceled, including the Stars matchup with the Nashville Predators. But teams reported back to their facilities today. Guys tested positive for COVID, are now in the NHL, COVID protocols. And so maybe we'll be seeing more guys get placed on this list. I sure hope not, but it certainly is a possibility. I know the NHL, as we talked about a few episodes ago, is taking measures kind of similar to last season to help prevent those, with masks around the facilities, virtual meetings, things like that, to try to slow the spread within team organizations. And as I mentioned, kind of to open this segment, the NHL did announce on Sunday that they will be bringing back taxi squads from now until the NHL All-Star break. And this is an excerpt from an article on ESPN.com talking about all of this. It says, under the new provisions, any team shy of having 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders available can bring up a player from the American Hockey League without playing a game with fewer than the usual 18 skaters. Emergency recalls also can be made of players with a salary cap hits of up to $1 million, an increase from the previous $850,000 limit. So basically, guys from the AHL can get called up super last second if teams are not equipped, not prepared to play an NHL game with their full roster. And so this opens the door for a lot of guys that have been playing at the AHL level to maybe get some play time at the NHL level now this season, with the shortage, within the lineups for the Dallas Stars team. Some of the guys that I have in mind that I'd like to see are guys that we've already seen at the NHL level, some a little bit longer than others, and some haven't seen the NHL this season. Maybe they've seen it in other short stints, but haven't seen it yet here in 2021, 2022. The first guy on my list is Riley Damiami. I think that this is a pretty easy one. He's the team leader of points for the Texas Stars. We've seen him play in the NHL one game, scored a goal against the St. Louis Blues in his NHL debut. Super cool moment. I think he showed a lot of promise in that debut, and has been showing a lot of promise at the AHL level, winning AHL Rookie of the Year last year. I think it would make a lot of sense if we saw a little bit of Riley Damiami over these next few weeks. Another guy I'd really like to see second on the team in points for the Texas Stars is left wing Curtis Mckenzie. Another guy that's been with the organization for just a little bit, but another guy that's having a really nice season down in Cedar Park, and especially with some of our offensive talent missing. It wouldn't surprise me to see a little bit more of the offensive forwards pulled up, because, you have guys like Thomas Harley, who's been kind of back and forth between the AHL and NHL. I imagine he's going to get a lot more playing time now with the absence of Mira Hayskin and Yanni Hakanpää. We might see Ben Gleason get called up. He's a guy that I know we talked about a few episodes ago who has seen some NHL minutes, not this season, but has seen the NHL for a brief stint before a few seasons ago. Riley Tufte, another guy that's been at the NHL level so far this season, and brief stint, hasn't really done much in the score sheet, but a guy, that I think needs to continue to get this experience. And I think this would be a great opportunity for him. And kind of the last guy that kind of came to mind, and, not too many guys would make this list. A lot of guys would probably stay at the AHL level, is Oscar Back, another guy that plays forward for the Texas Stars, having a pretty nice season. Definitely not up there statistically with some of the other guys I've named, but a guy that I think could benefit from some NHL experience, especially if he's maybe playing on that bottom line for the Stars. I think that, could be a good moment for him, especially if the Stars find themselves in a game where they're maybe winning by quite a few goals or maybe, losing by quite a few and have some garbage time, I guess, if you will, for guys like Back to get a little bit more play time than they normally would at the NHL level. But with so many teams needing to call guys up from the AHL, I think that in general, no matter the guys I just named, or maybe there's people I missed. I know Ty Dellandrea and Nick Camano have seen times with the NHL, with the Stars last season. Rhett Gardner, guys like that. We might see them get called up. Who knows? This is all just speculation. This is all just predictions on my part, guys. I'd like to see some younger guys within the organization, who are developing fine at the AHL level, but, could, of course, benefit from maybe getting a little bit of a taste of the National Hockey League just to get their feet wet a little bit. But I think it's a really cool opportunity for, teams across the NHL, but especially the Dallas Stars, to kind of see what their future holds, give some of these younger guys great opportunity for experience. Like I said, get their feet wet. And who knows, maybe some of these guys are just absolute diamonds in the rough and could translate a lot of offensive explosion for the Stars team, or defensive explosion. Either way, we'll take what we can get. But I think a really cool opportunity across the NHL, despite seeing some of our favorite players get sidelined due to COVID, a cool opportunity for some of these younger guys to potentially, boost their status within the organization by having some good outings at the NHL level. And I certainly hope some guys at the AHL level with the Texas Stars get an opportunity to play at the NHL. One, just a cool opportunity for them to achieve their dreams, but another cool learning and growing opportunity for them as they continue their NHL journey. And maybe they can help the team out because the Dallas Stars are going to be playing teams that are also having roster shortages, and maybe, some prospect on prospect action gets to happen, and the Dallas Stars guys get to show what they're really made of and get the best of some other guys on some other teams. Well, coming up next, in the same vein as prospects at the AHL level, we'll take a moment and talk about the World Junior Championships with the IIHF. Talk about some Dallas Stars prospects that played yesterday, and talk about what teams they're on representing their respective countries. But before we do all that, do want to take a moment and say thank you to another sponsor of today's episode, and that is BetOnline.ag. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before, as football continues its march through the College Bowl season and into the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new website or mobile device, sign up today, and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. And to close out today's episode of Locked On Stars, want to take a minute and talk a little bit of World Juniors with you guys. Talk about the tournament, the championship that just started yesterday. Dallas does have 4 prospects playing in the tournament. Not as many as some other teams. I believe Carolina has the most. I think they have like 10 or 11. But still cool to see that Dallas has a pretty, solid turnout here in this tournament. Some of the best young hockey talent on the planet. Logan Stankoven, the 2021 round 2 pick for the Dallas Stars, 47th overall, and Maverick Bork, 2020 round 1, 30th overall pick. Both of those guys playing for Canada. And Daniel Youngman, the 2020 round 5, 154th overall pick for the Dallas Stars. And Albert Sjoberg, I could be saying that wrong. Please correct me on Twitter if I'm saying that wrong. Did my best to find the pronunciation for his name, but couldn't have much luck. So please let me know if I'm saying his name wrong. But he was the round 7th 207th overall pick, 2021 pick for the Dallas Stars. Both of those guys, Albert and Daniel, play for Sweden. Super exciting to see these guys representing their countries and getting an opportunity to play on a pretty big stage and show what they really got. Stankoven was a healthy scratch for Canada in their 6-3 win over the Czech Republic on Sunday. Maverick Bourque did record an assist on an Owen Power goal in the second period that gave Canada a 4-3 lead. And then Canada never looked back from that lead. So Maverick Bourque showing his hand in a Canada win early in the tournament. Canada did have a bit of a scare at the start of the game. I believe they were down 3-1 at one point, but they bounced back and got the 6-3 win over the Czech Republic. Like I said, Sweden got the 6-3 win as well over Russia. Youngman recorded a goal off an empty net to put a stamp on the win for the Swedes. So super exciting to see, these Dallas Stars guys getting involved. Youngman, clearly an empty netter, not the same as a normal goal, but still cool to see him get involved, get in the score sheet, and again, put the stamp, make the score look a little bit better for his country, 6-3. So excited to see how this tournament unfolds as, just in general, because I'm a fan of good hockey. This seems to be a really, really exciting time with some of the youngest and freshest talent across hockey, across the world, like I said, but also as far as my education on hockey prospects, it's pretty minimal as of right now. My knowledge of hockey is pretty good, I'd say, in the NHL level, especially within the Dallas Stars organization. And I feel like pretty decent across the entire league. But as far as prospects go, never really done that great of a job of keeping up with this World Juniors tournament in the past or the prospects in general. So I'm excited to get to know a little bit more about these guys and their play style, not just for the Stars, but across the league in general, because I can imagine that there's so many talented guys across this tournament. And I can't wait to see some of the future stars of the NHL taking some of their first steps into stardom through this World Juniors tournament. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you again for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Now go make your second listen of the day, the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. They got all of your gambling needs met at the Locked On Bets podcast. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast at. Be sure to also subscribe and follow the Locked On Stars podcast if you do not do so already. You can subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube as well for 100% free, costs you nothing. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's at Dane _Lewis, at DANE 2_LEWIS. You can also find the show on Twitter at Locked On Stars. Be sure to give us a follow there as well. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as we continue to get prepared for the Dallas Stars' return to action on Wednesday against the Colorado Avalanche. Have a great day, Stars fans, and we will see you back here tomorrow.